Yeah, there it is.
High school would have been so much easier, bro.
I could have used this for my senior paper.
Yeah, instead of paying somebody to do it, I could have done it on ChatGPT for free.
Well, I shouldn't say.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Deer Grow.
Man, it's almost food plot season, Jared, and Deer Grow is one of those products that has really changed the way that we plant food plots and the success we've seen from them.
No doubt. I've been, trying to plant food plots my entire whitetail hunting career, which is a little shorter than yours. But the minute that I started, or that I realized that I could get Deer Grow back into some of these remote plots where I couldn't get lime or fertilizer, especially in the 50-pound bag, format. Mm-hmm. So everything was changed. I could get into these spots moving forward with a backpack sprayer, and that's since escalated to these 40 or 60 gallon sprayers, and we're doing upwards of 5 to 10 acre food plots just with Deer Grow and having phenomenal success.
Yeah, and with the price of fertilizer, lime, diesel, everything this year, what better way to get in there and grow a successful food plot at about a third of the cost? Check out Deer Grow at deergrow.com. And we're back.
Hey,
HUNTR Podcast, episode 121.
From the hip.
Still March. Although you're listening to this, it is probably April.
Probably April. Let me look.
Whoa.
2 Tuesdays from now.
It'll be April 4th.
I will now be 39.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
What? Wait, what? You got a birthday coming up?
April 3rd.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm. Last one in the 30s.
What? When? April 3rd?
Mm-hmm. If they're listening to this, it was yesterday.
Okay. Shit. Should we do something? Nick, should we do something?
Yeah.
No, probably not. I kind of really just want to take a day.
What do you want? You want
I just want to take a day off and be by myself.
Can I just take a nap?
I just want to go and
Fish?
be on a property. Yeah, I might fish because trout season will be open, but just not do anything.
When's
work
first day of trout?
related. The first.
Nice, dude. That's coming right up.
Yeah. Couple weeks. Well, if you're listening to this, it was 30 days ago. Jesus,
Yeah.
how are we supposed to live in the
That's
fact?
all right.
What am I, Marty McFly?
Yeah, man, I'm ready to do a little bit of fish. I like to wet a line, a couple times, couple times in the spring,
Yeah.
Well, dude, I keep my breakdown fly rod during the season. I keep it in my truck.
Well, now that we travel a little bit for real estate, we definitely go through some areas that have some primo area trout fishing.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm actually. Again, we're living in the past, but I'm hoping if I get to Kentucky this weekend, I gotta take my boat and get just standard work on it this weekend so it's ready for the season too. That's my plan.
That's right.
Coming up. Right. It's gonna be warm before you know it.
Well, it would have been a week ago now or so. I don't know if we talked about it though. I got out and did a little shed hunting. Did we talk about this? Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, we did briefly, I guess.
Yeah.
Found a handful of them. I just was I was kind of itching.
And back-to-back days we did. I took that quick spin when I went and bought the grain drill, the no-till drill.
Yeah.
And just walked for less than 30 minutes on my Ohio place. Then you went out.
You found a couple, right?
Found two. Yeah.
That's a good sign, dude.
Yeah, I found two.
And dude, by all indications, I haven't been to any of these places, but you're on the bucks down there. I've yet to see the.
Well, so this is something we talked about it a little bit, but I don't think we've kind of elaborated on this, and hell, for all I know, they're listening. But my neighbors in Ohio have basically tracked me down via the podcast. They were listening to the podcast, which is what a freaking small world, right? Because as we always, it's not like we're Joe Rogan or something, right? But listen to the podcast and hearing me and you talk about my Ohio place, and they're like, this might be this guy that just bought this farm next to us. Damned if it isn't.
Enough.
They've been there for 20 years. They live, about the same distance I live from the farm, and awesome, because now it's immediate 20 years of intel of what was working there, what have they seen, and I've always felt good about that area. That's why I bought there. But you're either in the neighborhood or you're not. And per these guys, I'm in the right neighborhood. And frankly, it sounds like maybe what I even saw this past year, which was good. I had a good season. I saw some great deer. There's a lot better deer in the area. And it sounds like I'm battling corn pals.
I think you need a second set of eyes down there. That's why I'm pushing for us to get
Nick?
No, not those eyes.
He's got glasses.
These eyes right here. Yeah. Yeah, you need. I think you need a second opinion.
Your eyes. Okay.
I think we got to get down there and
Yeah.
check it out.
I'll tell you what I am, and I pulled it the other day. So I love how the farm. It could set up a little bit better, but I just the feel of the farm, the kind of diversity of the property is awesome. When I get into the like deep valley in the back, and I've got some really nice ridges and stuff, it's also just big ass timber, like mature timber. And so I'm probably due for a cut back there. And so that's something that I'm going to start working with a forester in that area, have him walk through with me. I've got some really good, I'm probably going to get some good money out of that. But again, the goal, as much as money, is to like thicken that place up, and maybe even have them carve some better access trails for me to get to some of these back areas on like staying on the eastern side of my property, playing into the wind. Maybe get a couple landings back there that can have, acre, half acre kill plot type stuff, because that is the limiting factor here. Is I've got 10 acres of tillable kind of up front. In fact, 3 of it is actually across the small road where my cabin is, but I'm drawing all the deer into that spot, which, it's 130 acres, but it limits, the number of spots. We've talked about this. Where's the X marks the spot? I've got 2 or 3 that I probably should only be hunting.
Well, it sounds like a really challenging property to hunt. It sounds a lot like the McGivern farm in that most of your food is down in the bottom.
Yep.
And there's probably some bedding happening down there.
Most of it's on the ridges.
But it's tough to get into that property at all. Yeah, most of them are overlooking them valleys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, it's nice because, frankly, it's easy to get to those spots. I've got 3 spots that if I sit in, the deer are coming to me from a long ways off. The problem with that is most of those aren't getting there till dark. And this is one I was chatting back and forth with, I think it was somebody on YouTube. This is probably the only farm I own that like I don't go on it really besides management and or hunting. Like our family does, we go down every once in a while, but it's not like our other farms where we're on it every few weekends or whatever. So, I mean, and I see that reflected in the daytime activity. Like most of my deer pictures on that farm are in daytime. Most of my buck pictures throughout deer season were in daytime. I knew where they were bedding, so I did have some nighttime movement. But
and you had shooters on that property last year,
several.
Daylight pictures of shooters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I had 4, 5. I probably had 5 bucks over 4 years old on that property.
Wow.
2 or 3 5-year-olds maybe.
Dang.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's more than I'm recalling.
You know,
I remember that heavy 8 point.
Yeah, like high 140s 8. I had another barely 10 that was like, he was probably a 5-year-old, probably again high 40s. I had a really nice 11 point that only showed up a few times. I had him in daylight too, but he was probably in the mid upper 50s. Couple big 4-year-olds. I've one really big, what I think is a 3-year-old 10 point. I mean, that's the future stud of the farm. I mean, if he did make it through, I did get him after the season. I didn't find a shed, but that deer as a 4-year-old will probably be all over high 50s.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that deer's a future booner.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we're in an area that predominantly timber and pasture. So I'm coming in, and again, the one thing I think people hear us talk about, and in our situations are so different, but like I bought that no-till drill because I want corn or beans. In this case, I'm going to put a lot of corn in. There is no farming, right? Like I can't even pick up a phone and call a farmer and say, hey man, just go and farm this and do this. Like there is no farmer.
Right.
It's all hay cutting.
Yep.
That's all it is. So, I've got this drill. I'm drilling 6 acres of corn probably, and then the rest I'll probably put into fall plots. But yeah, I mean, it will change the dynamic of that area because of that food. And it did last year. And I mean, it was a piss poor job last year. I had really, really tall grass, super wet. I couldn't even disc it. I ended up just broadcasting half of it.
Yeah.
Nuked it and broadcast. So, coming in with the drill and trying to change that aspect. I still haven't done any timber cutting on it, like even TSI work on mine. There's a lot of super thick areas already. So I'm trying to balance out the food equation from a planning side before I really go in and do some things on a timber habitat. But the first step on that might be like a major select cut of that big mature timber.
Yeah. And what do you have for like stand selections now? Like, do you have a box blind down there?
I do. I have 2 box blinds. Of one on the main funnel plot, which is about 7 or 8 acres. There's like, it's a chain of several plots in a row that goes up through the valley. It's kind of not the last plot, but like the biggest of the chain. And I've got a pretty good way to get in there, especially if I get corn up as a screening opportunity. I didn't last year, and that probably hurt me. I was walking through brassica fields.
Yep.
Whereas this year I'm going to have corn kind of up for screening. And then I'm going to have one over the 3-acre field in the front of my camp, which will be a lot of corn, and then like an inner part of clover and or brassicas. I'm not sure. And then that'll pull some deer across the road, but most of those deer I'm playing are in a bigger parcel of timber that is on that southern part of my farm. Mm-hmm. That is not, part of that is my property, but not a lot of it. It's neighbor's property. I'm going to be looking at pulling those deer off into there. So and there'll be a box blind there, easy access to get to. And then I've got a handful of tree stands up. Most of it on that south and or eastern side, right? Super easy to get to and or playing myself into the wind. But that's the stuff that, again, I've got tree stands that I know I can't hunt right now. Like it's impossible for me to get there without boogering it up.
Yeah.
But those are the learning lessons that you have to have. And I mean, I sat in that box blind in October last year, and I was on a brassica plot, had a little bit of clover in it, and I had 11 bucks in that plot in one evening, including 2 of the 4-year-olds that at the time I wasn't willing to shoot because I was hunting the 5-year-olds. But I mean, almost every buck on that farm that I knew of came into that plot in one evening with plenty of daylight left.
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
So yeah, I mean, it sounds like I'm in the right area. We've had some, this is kind of the cool discussions you get with neighbors. The pass has had some serious poaching issues, significant to the point. And
it sounds like that area kind of lays out for it. It's like a Kentucky draw situation where it's 100%. Like you can drive right up, see the whole valley where the food are at, and food's
that's it.
at.
Well, and I mean, all of per them and hearing other people talk, it's all big timber ridges, and the bottoms where the houses and stuff are is where the open fields are. And these guys were saying, drive up and down this road in the evening or right at dusk, and the fields are just full of deer. Like there's big bucks coming out of they're buried in thousands of acres of timber ridges, and they come down and they feed, and then they go back and bury themselves back up there. And this is where you and I talk a lot about, I know where they're going. I don't know where the hell they're coming from, right? It's thousands of acres of timber that's all contiguous there, and I have an idea of where some of these deer bed, but I mean, it's not here's 10 acres, they're here. I just know that they're coming to this 3-acre plot because it's the only place that they've got significant food right now.
Right.
So that's my challenge, whereas your challenge often is, I know where they're bedding, I don't know where the hell they're going because there's food everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of opposite. Same, spokes on a wheel type scenario.
It's exactly.
Whether it's, I mean, I would rather know, I guess, probably where they're bedding than where they're feeding, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's yes and no. I mean,
usually it's pretty straightforward though, because you can, unlike a food. I mean, yeah, you can go out and look at a food source and say, well, there's browse pressure here. Whether you have an exclosure cage or you can just see the browse line, or where there's tracks and there's there's rubs. Right? Here's where they're feeding. Cool. You can kind of find that out, but it's not as definitive as here's the bed.
Oh, no, not even close. And the other part is that farm was a killer for me on trail cameras because I ran not a lot, five or six on 130 acres, but because I'm absentee, they were all cell cams. I had shit signal there. So I think we talked about it in podcast past. Like I would check a card, there's 8,000 pictures on it. My app says I got 400. Like what? What do you mean? Yeah. Because there wasn't enough signal for it to throw up there.
Sounds like you're going to kill something this year.
Yeah, I feel pretty confident about where we're at on that. I need to kind of go use my cameras for survey purposes of there's a buck I want to kill and I know he's there. Carter and I actually, we came in the night before the opening day of rifle there, or gun season, whatever you want to call it. And I wanted to, it was going to be cold the next morning. So I was like, hey man, it was like 9 o'clock at night. I was like, I'm going to take the Tarovi back there.
By the way, I saw one the other day. I had Steve's shop.
Oh, yeah.
When I stopped in, I was like, holy crap, these things are beefy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I got my hands on one.
They're nice.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, very nice.
Oh, it flies. So I drove the Tarovi back through the gate to the backfield just to throw some stuff in the blind for the next day. And I got back there and there was like 40 deer in that food plot. And I don't have a picture on camera with more than like 5 deer in the picture.
Yep.
And it's like, how do you monitor a 2.5 or 3 acre food plot? Like you can't.
You hunt it.
Yeah, you just hunt it. So, so those deer, the deer are there. I mean, when I took Harlan down like the week after that, I remember sitting in that blind and I'm looking ahead of me. I'm like, what the hell? And there was a giant rub. I mean, one of the biggest rubs I've seen in a long time. Dead straight ahead of me. I never freaking even saw it. And I mean, I kind of know what deer it probably was, but who knows, right? You don't freaking know. So it's, it's cool to get into those spots, but I do feel confident. The big thing, and, we're talking about this now, it's April 4th, as Nick says. It's a critical time. If you're going to plant corn, you've got 4 weeks-ish, 5 weeks-ish to get your corn in, which means you should be thinking about spraying and controlling weeds prior to getting that corn in. If you're relying on farmers, they're doing it for you, but I'm not. Like, it's all on me. So now I've got to figure out, I've been looking at doing a pre-emergent, which is that like simazine, same stuff you would use on a switchgrass, which would be a pre-emergent broadleaf control. So you spray that actually now. It's not green up here, right? Spray that now. That'll help control any broadleafs in the soil as green up comes. You want a little bit of green up, or you got to be using Roundup Ready corn to get those grasses killed out, right? And then drill. And, effectively you should have your weeds controlled enough that your corn's gonna grow. Mm-hmm. I'm planting corn. I feel very confident about the corn going in the ground in Ohio. I've tested that soil. It's really good. It's in a floodplain, so it's super fertile all through there. My Kentucky farm, I'm not worried about it, but it's old pasture ground. And so I expect it not to be as successful as Ohio.
I bet it is. I bet it's fine. You got cows been shitting all over it for
we'll see
years.
And I'll deer grow the shit out of it for sure. I'll hammer that stuff and I'll get a good kill on it. I do think, and I'm excited, and we'll see how it works, but I'm super excited to have a no-till drill. I think that seed to soil contact, very little disturbance, water conservation, like all of that is going to be super successful for corn and beans.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do some switchgrass too. But yeah, I mean, it's, you circle around it all the time, but I think that the thing that I'm struggling with the most on those properties, and I got to continue to work on, is food. Mm-hmm. I mean, I ran out of food. I ran out of food in Ohio about the time that before gun season really came in.
Yeah. It's tough, man. Dude, deer eat a lot. It's hard to like wrap your mind around until you see, a group of like 8 or 10 does in a field just chowing down. They're there for an hour, 2 hours, and you're like, oh, they do this every night, and it's like you start to realize like how much you really need.
Yeah, it's a ton. Well, and I mean, the other thing is
to sustain a herd, not necessarily to attract. I mean, you can plant a small whatever and draw them in for a period of time, but
they're going to crush it.
They're going to crush it. Yeah, I mean, if you want to really do something for your deer herd and have food for them, through the end of March, which is really that critical time. You need, whatever it is, 5 or 10% of your entire property should be in a food source.
Well, that's why I never find sheds. Like all of my food's long gone prior to deer shedding out, so those deer aren't there. Yep. I mean, the fact that I found both of those sheds that I found were in my brassica plots. Yep. By no surprise.
No surprise.
So I think that as you kind of look at that aspect of things. And the other thing that I get caught up on is, like we talked about a few podcasts ago, like I have plans for that Kentucky place. One of those plans is I'm going to put in about a 5 to 7 acre brassica field. Like,
yeah, that's huge.
Freaking giant field. And the cool thing is why I want to get corn in now is, like, if I can get corn established, that's a little less pressure. Now I can just get some beans in because I want to hunt early season. Then everything else is late July, early August, right?
Yeah.
When you get to, like, let's just say I'm planting 35 acres in Kentucky. If I had to do all of that for fall food plots, it'd be almost impossible. I need a week. like to actually do all of that and plan all of that.
Yeah.
And
that's the hardest part, but it's trying to cram it all in.
Just don't have the
time. Especially when you're traveling, because it's like you got to load up the flatbed trailer, you got to haul everything down there. Not all of it can be done in one swoop in most cases. Usually guys got to spray, 2 weeks later you disc. Yep. You got to go back 4 weeks later and spray if it's like a glide resistant deal or.
Well, and that's the tough part. And I don't know what it'll be like. I am using, so I'm going to use some corn that's hybrid, glide resistant, so that I can do some Roundup Ready treatments on some corn. I do have quite a bit of NutriCraze from Real World corn that I had some from last year that I never got to plant, and I had some new ones come in this year. But so I'm going to do a little bit of a mixture there and kind of see. But the Real World corn is not Roundup Ready. It's non-GMO, so it's not Roundup Ready. So I mean, you control the weeds, you put it out there, and you got what you got, type of thing. Whereas, at least the Roundup Ready hybrid stuff, if I have to, I'll nuke it, kill grasses out competition-wise.
I think my dad, so they plant sweet corn, and I'm pretty sure.
Is that what the farmer plants, the whole thing?
No.
Oh, you're just talking about your dad.
My dad plants sweet corn,
and couple rows.
Yeah, well, a considerable amount. I mean, it's probably an eighth of an acre, maybe quarter of an acre. And I think like three of the last 4 years they've lost it because it's just weeds. Yeah. Weeds. Like anytime you disturb that soil, you really need to probably like the first time go in and spray and drill it. I mean, that's the only way to do it. Spray and drill at the same time.
Well, and my hope is if I can spray this simazine kind of pre-emergent for the corn.
Yeah, that'll help.
And that's broadleafs only, right? And then I'm going to either drill and spray at the same time or spray just before, depending on when green up in that. Because you need a little bit
as close to your seeding as possible.
I mean, if I can do it, I'll do it all at once, right? I'll just spray it. In fact, I'm trying to work on a little modification for a couple 25-acre sprayers on the back of that. But I can't have too much weight because I'll tip her. But I'm going to try to drill and spray at the same time, Roundup or glide and nuke that grass. Now, for anybody listening, I don't know who's bought it. I went and bought Glide at Rural King last week. When I say it was $79 per 2.5 gallons or something, and I got enough for. Well, I got 15 gallons worth,
which is a lot because I mean, 2 quarts per acre is what you want for a total kill.
Yep.
One quart per acre for your post emergence.
Yep. And so in 2.5, you've got what 8, 9, 2 acre, 9, 10.
There's 10 quarts in a 2.5 gallon deal.
Okay, so 10.
So 5 acres.
Yep, 5 acres
for total kill.
Yep. So I've got.
So every bottle's 5, 10, 15, 20.
Yep. So I've got what 70 acres worth then.
70 acres,
right? Don't I have 15 gallons?
Oh. Well, right? A gallon's 4. Gallon's 4 quarts.
Okay.
So how many gallons do you have? 15? So 15 times 4, you got 60.
60, yeah.
Divided by 2.
So I've got 30.
30 acres.
30 acres worth. Yep. So, I mean, that won't get me through, probably.
Yeah, and you always need extra.
Yeah. Yeah, because I always just... I did get a measuring cup this time. I also got... not so much on my Ohio farm, but I needed it for Kentucky. I got the blue dye that goes in there. So when you spray it, you can actually see where you sprayed. And most of that is for, I'm going to do some switch and old field in between. So I don't want to spray the old field with simazine, right? I want that to be whatever the hell's in the seed bed go. But I want to spray where the switch is going with it. So I'm going to spray it. I'll be able to see it's blue. Jump a section, spray again, and that middle part will be where I'm not drilling, basically.
Be curious to see how that works out for you.
Yeah.
Because I talked to a few guys at like the local co-op when we were getting ready to spray all the stuff that we burned, and they kind of talked me out. The agronomist there talked me out of the spray. I think he just said it doesn't really work.
What do you mean? The dye?
The dye.
I mean, I would assume it just depends on what you're spraying it on. Like if you're spraying it on like dead weeds, light color, I would assume that blue's going to show up.
You'd think so. I can't remember exactly why, but yeah, he definitely talked. He's like, you don't need that. Some guys use foam.
Yep. And it just drops the edges.
Yep. And I don't know. I've just always been more of kind of eye it up guy.
Yeah. Mainly it was because where I'm going to drill I don't want to have spray the simazine down.
Yeah.
And then on the corn side of things, because of, switch is going to take a while to establish. I'm going to use that as a lot of my screening, but in year 1 and maybe 2, I'm going to have to plant corn as kind of my first year or 2 screen till that switch gets high enough. So I'm basically going to do a full, my drill is 72 inch. And so I'm going to do a full width of switch as the screen, but I'm going to come beside it and do at least 1, if not 2 rows of corn, and maybe even tight rows of corn. I'm not sure yet, just to have some sort of a screen in year 1 and maybe year 2 until that switch gets high enough. Then I'll bail off of that.
Yeah.
So, that to help me kind of paint the lines of essentially where I'm going to be drilling in will also help. But, it's a staged effort on stuff. I think that the thought process behind, taking, and this is kind of how do you reset your brain essentially, and at least in Ohio when I've got 1 season under my belt, the thought process is, first off, get as much food as I can, make sure it makes sense of where I'm planting it. Now, how do I access this damn thing to hunt? I mean, that's what it comes down to. Because, you could have a great farm, but if you are screwing it up every step that you take, it's dead.
So good, yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out how, and maybe that's where the timber cuts come in, how to kind of push some stuff back further that allows me to maybe navigate through some areas that those deer aren't going to be. To get in between them a little bit better, in between them and food source. Like you said, here's where they're bedding, here's where they're eating. I'd rather be in between than up where waiting for them.
Not necessarily. I think like guys get hung up on like, I have to make the property hunt this way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that like it's unnatural. Like I think you're way better off.
It's never going to work either. You can't manipulate a property.
I think, you can manipulate the property, but why? I think I think you should look at a property, and maybe even take a year or 2 to observe, run cameras, hunt it, see how things are moving on it, see how your presence there impacts things, and then try to like improve on the strengths of the property.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've heard guys like, Drury and Higgins and, whoever else talk about there's rut farms, there's early season farms, there's late season farms, sometimes a combination of the 3. And rather than going in and saying like, okay, where's my best, rut setup? I'm going to, I got to do everything I can to, it may not be that kind of a farm. Like it may be a late early season farm. Maybe you've got better thermal cover, better, feeding patterns to be able to hunt. So instead of trying to like manipulate it into exactly like your dream or what you'd hoped it would be, is just learn from the farm, learn what it's offering already, and then make your manipulations or additions in a way that you can maximize those opportunities.
Yeah, and that's where, like, even on this first step on this new Kentucky place, like, I've got plans, I'm hesitant to even implement all of them. Number 1, I don't know if I'll have time. Number 2 is, like, I've never even been on it, like, to hunt it and know what these deer are going to do. I know I need food.
You got to start somewhere. Like, to me, just from hearing you talk about it, like, your Ohio farm, to me, sounds like, it sounds like a bed food farm, and that doesn't disqualify late October.
Sure.
I think mid to late October is probably your best bet down there.
Yep.
And then depending on like visibility from those ridges, either late or early season from those box blinds, but not probably a whole lot of opportunities as far as deep woods tree stand access hunts.
No, I can't get to them.
Whereas your Kentucky farm is big enough, frankly, that you've got a diversity of opportunities.
Lots of access on that one.
I think absolutely, you can pull deer up onto those, food sources you're going to put in there. But there's also probably at least 1 or 2,
like buried down in things.
Yeah, nice
saddles,
rut stands.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And again, the low hanging fruit on all of them, which is kind of the easiest to solve if you have the right equipment, is I need food. I got to add food to both of these.
Dude, here's the thing too. It's like a lot of people forget about like, cause you want to be you got to be in the right spot.
Mm-hmm.
But during a certain time of the year, you can really extend your range with calling. You know what I mean? Dude, I know, and Winky is one of them too, for as much as, that guy manipulated the farm that he lived on in Albia. I think a majority of his deer got grunted in from like over 100 yards away.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, no, I think that's where I like those ridge type farms, because you get up on some of these ridges.
Rising's the same way, dude.
Yeah,
Not to interrupt you.
absolutely.
A lot of those deer get grunted or grattled in.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got to be where they're at. That's first step. We've always talked about that, and I'm confident now, and kind of what I saw in the first year, talking with my neighbor. I'm in the right area.
Yeah.
Just it'll take some time to get it to where it needs to be, but they're there. It wouldn't surprise me if I see a booner this year.
Wow.
That just he was either there
Boone
or
Crockett.
Yep.
Wow.
Or one of these deer blow up.
Dude,
I don't know.
It takes a lot, for a deer to be Boone Crockett status.
Yes.
Like that's a big deer.
Giant
Yeah.
deer. I wouldn't be surprised if I do for sure have, I got that one 4-year-old on that new Kentucky farm that was all over high 50s or 60s as a mainframe 11. If that deer made it through, he'll be all over 70s. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's not some studs hanging in some of those big timber that you put 4 acres of beans or 7 acres of brassica. They're coming.
Well, with that many deer in that age class, I wouldn't be surprised if you see some deer disappear. And unfortunately, it's the ones you want to hang around
Sure,
typically.
the young hammers.
Yeah. So, because like I sent you the other day over at Glasgow, I had the crab claw. That's a 5-year-old buck, and I had another.
Was crab claw the deer you actually went in to kill?
They were both 5. Yeah.
That was the deer you went in to kill
Yeah.
that day.
Both these deer are 5-year-olds actually. So there's crab claw. He's like a 125, 130 inch 8-point, and the other tight racked heavy 8.
Yep.
And he was all busted up. I mean, gnarly. I actually found one of his sheds.
Oh, really?
The other day from the year before. It was old. I tossed
Yeah.
it. They both got hit by cars.
Which is crazy because it's not like it's a busy area.
I know, it's weird. For as much research as I can do on it, it was confirmed. Like Jeremy knew the guy that found him, and said it was legit, and Jed did.
Mm-hmm.
So those 2 deer are gone, and while it sucks to have them 2 5-year-olds, taken off the docket, I actually think that it's going to benefit that property a lot in terms of the antler quality of deer that we're going to have there in the next 2 years, because there's at least 2 deer that were 4 last year. One we saw, one we never saw.
Mm-hmm.
Whether he's alive or not, I don't know.
Yep.
I mean, megas. These
Should
are
be giants.
These are both probably pushing 160 4-year-olds. The one very well. We never saw him. Like I said, very well could have been in the mid 60s. If they're both around this year and those 2 5-year-olds aren't there to keep them off the property, it wouldn't surprise me if some of those deer that I'm like, where did they go?
Start to filter
kinda
back
should
in.
back up. There's another 4-year-old 9-point from last year. So.
That's that social element that, I think as hunters, we always are striving to go after. And, I think we talked to, either Carl Miller or Strickland about it. Ultimately it's the least known part of deer behavior, right? The social interaction. It's almost immeasurable in terms of how you look at it, but like it's common sense that a big mature 5-year-old buck is going to likely push out a better quality, quote, 3 or 4-year-old deer. Like he's the dominant deer. He's going to push him out.
Dominant. He's been there longer.
He's going to push him out. And so, that social interaction, again, it's like, we're always out to hunt a mature deer. And as you look at this thing, when you lose a mature deer, it's not necessarily a bad thing. You just may have to be patient of what comes in and what it's going to develop into.
I'll tell you what, dude, I have absolutely no evidence to support this, but I think
sounds factual.
It's happened enough times that like I have seen, not physically seen it, but like I'm aware, like just from trail cameras and sightings, I can tell what deer are on a property and which ones aren't. I think that older, inferior antlered bucks are more intimidated or more likely to kick off younger, higher scoring deer than they are to kick off the same age class.
Absolutely.
I think I don't know what it is, if they're like that deer's is more of a threat to me, because of his antler or whatever it is, but like it's always the better scoring ones that get pushed off.
Yeah.
Almost always.
Well, and what's interesting in that is I don't see, like, let's say we take looking in that field of all those bucks pouring into a food plot. I don't see 2 substantially dominant 5-year-olds entering that plot very often and pushing each other around. I usually see one of them coming in and pushing all of those younger deer around. Right. And that
by that time of the season, they've established who's who.
Yeah. But they also, I feel like, keep their distance, whereas they don't really give a shit about these other deer. Like if it's a great 150-inch 3-year-old and they're a 125-year-old, he'll come out in the field and push that deer straight out. But if those two deer are in the same, you just don't see them interacting as much. They're really kind of using their own distance satellites.
Yeah, respect.
Yeah, he comes in the field, he leaves the field, he comes in the field, leaves the field. Not that one's dominant over the other as much as it is like, we're just not going to...
Overlapping territory.
We're not going to waste our time messing. Now, everybody in between, fair game.
Yeah.
Right? Push them out, move them around, do whatever you have to do.
Yeah.
And so I think you continually see that, and it's where... I think ultimately, and Bill knows the farm better than I do, but for a while there when Bill and I were doing a lot of stuff on his farm together, I think he got to the point where he had so many older bully type bucks that his younger bucks were just getting knocked off the farm.
Mm-hmm.
And what ended up happening is all these 6 and 7-year-old, it's a mature buck, but just not great scoring deer being the result, and all of his high scoring 3 and 4-year-old deer were living somewhere else.
Yeah.
And
you can fix it. It's not like that's been
No.
altered at the genetic level. Like you just have to kill all the bully bucks.
Got to kill them off. Yeah, and you may actually, lower your age class by spending several seasons harvesting mature deer that aren't the best deer on the property to try to get those better quality deer to position themselves.
I don't think they always have to come from younger deer, though. I think like in Glasgow will be a good case study this year because those were the 2 bucks that I thought, those were frankly the only 2 like low scoring deer that I thought were, they were there a lot and they were running it.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised at all if a new 4 or 5 or a couple of them year olds showed up and were just there, like
sponged into it.
Yeah, they're like, hey, this because it's a great habitat. There's does there. We have food sources there. Somebody's going to come in and claim it.
I think that's where we talked. I guess it would be last week now. We talked to Mike Yoder at Deer Drone, and he talked about those deer kind of being moved out for 3 weeks or so, and then kind of working their way back in. And I think that ultimately, again, those deer are positioning themselves in what they believe to be the best quality security cover and habitat. Those mature bucks, especially, they're the highest end of the hierarchy, right? Mm-hmm. I think that, to the point of when those deer get removed, like in a Glasgow case, ultimately, there's going to be bucks who maybe weren't as dominant or weren't as capable of defending that territory that were knocked out. Now that there's space, there's an opening, right? So there's going to be a shift there and kind of a little bit of a scatter of who's going to be the next dominant. And then some of those bucks will end up shifting their way back out because it's, they're not going to be able to be overlapping territories there.
Yeah.
But it'll be a full mix-up. Very well, that buck that you thought was going to be there and be a big one got knocked out, right? Couldn't compete in the area. Next year he comes back in because he knows that's the best area. It's just he couldn't compete against those bucks who were there that were older, more mature, better body definition, whatever. Now they're not there. They don't exist.
It is interesting. Like I'm very curious as to like their thought process as they're realizing like, this buck's not here anymore. Like maybe, if he's not here right now, like the sign's not, his smell's not here, like their thought process for just discovering that this area is maybe like up for grabs, but there's no, it's no surprise, when you find a mature buck's bed, you're like, yeah, I'd be here too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a gnarly thicket.
And I'm sure 15 years ago there was a mature buck in that bed, or the best quality buck was in that bed. Like it's there
the
for a
terrain's
reason.
not changing yet. I mean, they're basing those beds off of terrain and prevailing wind direction and line of sight, and yes, food sources from time to time and timbering and things like that will affect it. But generally, I mean, you find a good area for a mature buck to bed, it will always be that way.
Yeah, and I mean that's where I think you see these kind of deer. That's why I'm confident enough, and I don't know. We don't know necessarily what deer got shot in the area. My neighbors in Ohio didn't shoot anything. Some of the other guys around didn't shoot anything. So I don't know what got shot and what didn't. A few of the bucks I was hunting have vanished, right, towards the end of the season, but I also ran out of food. So again,
It's fun not to know, man.
you don't want to know everything.
Well, in the vein of like these trail camera conversations we've been having about like, because for a while there, I mean, not very long ago, you wanted to know every single deer.
And
And
which takes away the surprise. I mean, dude, I can remember growing up hunting a spot, that had a huge rub or whatever it was. And the entire time you're sitting in your stand, you're daydreaming of what that deer might look like, because you have no idea unless you're glassing summer fields or whatever. Maybe you think but ultimately, like I never knew what deer I was really hunting. I had no freaking idea.
Well, and it's still fun to like to kind of know, to have a picture, even if it's from last year, or I think just like the natural progression is you and I have gained more access over time. We're in a few different states. We can really only physically run so many trail cameras. Inevitably, things get left out or overlooked, but it's nice to, like, as we move cameras around and hunt different spots, like get a small bit here, small bit there. So like a nice level for me is like, even though like, so for example, that buck on Glasgow, there's actually two of them, but either one of them bucks, even though I haven't seen them for a year, I haven't heard of them getting killed, and I've got a picture of them from a year or two ago, and like, I'm observing these dynamic changes, like them bully bucks getting killed by cars.
I mean, it's setting up that they should move in.
I mean, dude, how cool, what a pinnacle that would be for that buck to show up and for me to see him in person for the first time and to recognize him, say that's who that was. And to kill him. Like that's way cooler, I think, than, I've had this deer on camera every single day.
That's what I'm going to try to do this year. You can hold me to it. That's what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to run cameras all year long, right?
Oh, yeah, me too.
Just kind of how I do it. But I'm going to try to use those more. I just want to know that the buck I want to harvest is there. He exists. I'm not hunting a ghost.
Right.
And honestly, that's not because of I want it to be easier. I don't like the challenge of figuring out if he's there or not. It's that in some of these cases, I don't have time.
Well, dude, I think for me, like from year to year, I think I'm finding out that annual information is almost more valuable than the day-to-day information.
Explain that.
Just to know, like to look back and know that a buck moved into a certain area. On a certain date.
Yep. Yeah, like mid October he came in.
I think you can live or die by it. Not necessarily to the day, but if a certain buck moved into a certain area and did a certain thing for a certain period of time last year, or maybe the last 2 years, I mean, you take it to the bank. Within. And it will vary, based on your weather fronts or,
Well, Bronson said that one deer took like the same day in like March, took these weird ass excursions to the day.
Yeah.
And I had the one buck that I hunted a few years ago up here on the mountain, mid-August, every year, same trail camera, same spot. That's, if he was alive, that's where he would show 3-4 years in a row. And then 1 year he didn't show. And I never saw that deer again.
Yep.
Died, something. Who knows, right? It's the unknown. But I was confident that as I exited August, I was not going to be hunting that deer that year.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but anyways, I mean, just, there's things out there. I mean, Frank, a lot of them. Things besides trail cameras that you can use to build story, to predict movement. That year-to-year stuff is valuable.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Stealth Cam.
Dude, where would we be without our cell cams?
I would definitely be divorced at this point.
Yeah, I hear that.
I mean, the fact is I spent more time checking cameras than I actually did hunting prior to cell cameras. Now, at least, my wife can enjoy me being in the comfort of my own home, buried in my phone, checking those pictures.
Yeah, 100%. And dude, when it comes to trail cameras and definitely cell cameras, reliability is, I think, the number one thing that we're looking for. Stealth Cam just has a long reputation of reliable cameras, and ultimately that is the most important thing to us. They have to work.
In terms of reliability, there's not a better camera on the market than Stealth Cam, whether you're talking about the Fusion X, the Reactor, or the DS4K Transmit. And most of them are under $200.
Stealthcam.com. Check them out.
Yeah, no, so those annual trends. So yeah, I completely agree. And, the only changes I think you see there, like this year I'll put in a lot different food source than I did last year. That'll affect it a little bit. Obviously I'm not cutting timber now, but if I did cut timber, that would affect it. The one thing that we haven't had, at least on our farms in the last 2 years, has been acorns, and that's a pivotal source of that fall opportunity. In fact, usually on my property here at home and my smaller Kentucky property, the years I have acorns, there's just bucks.
Me too.
Everywhere.
We're due for a good year.
And I mean, it's been nothing.
Yeah.
Not an acorn.
Kind of sucks because, as much as acorns do stretch them out, if you have a lot of oaks, like, we do at our, your Ohio place probably has a lot too.
Ton.
As much as that stretches them out, like, so does lack of acorns because
Absolutely.
like once the ag fields dry up, essentially, the beans have turned, they've lost their leaves. They're just as sporadically, like, I guess the environment changes a lot. Like for me, they're in big standing cornfields, they're way out there, or they're out in the middle of like these pastures and stuff, just eating anything but acorns.
Yep.
But I prefer the acorns, honestly, because in my situations, because we have less timber than we do open ground.
Sure.
So if I can at least condense them to timbered areas where we have acorns,
got a better beat on them.
Yeah, I mean, and they're laying sign in there.
I think for me, it just keeps those deer around. Well, two things: it keeps those deer eating something other than my food plots, which makes my food plots last longer, which means I keep those deer around. When the acorns dry up, food plot's still there. Like, I'm in the game.
Yeah.
These last few years with no acorns, my food plots are mowed.
Yeah.
I mean, down to the ground.
Yeah.
And then there's, come late season, if I want to hunt, there's nothing. Like, I mean, it's the deer are non-existent there, or few and far between at that. So, yeah, I mean, I think those are the things that, you're always going to have factors that are kind of thrown in. We are due. I bet this year's probably a bumper crop. If we don't get some sort of late freeze here, it'll be a bumper crop. It'll pour. And it'll be interesting to see how that affects things.
Dude, it's coming.
Gonna mark that.
I just had a quick burst of like, there's another hunting season coming.
It's not that far. It's April.
Yeah. Well, we're closer to it starting than we were from.
Yeah, I mean, in
May, June, July,
this
August,
is April
6 months.
4th. Yeah, I mean, in 5 months, it'll be opening a velvet in Kentucky.
Yep.
I saw somebody else was doing velvet season. Who is it?
Oklahoma.
Yeah. Yep, they're doing a velvet season in Oklahoma.
Dude, my friends are really screwing me for this. I've got a wedding to go to
Bastards.
October 1st.
Who does that?
In Colorado.
Who does?
Shout out to my buddy Austin.
Come on.
And then
Austin.
October 15th, my buddy Michael Geishart.
October 15th?
1st and the 15th, I got weddings.
What if we just make you like a robot and you just like have an iPad as
like
your
a clone?
face? Yeah.
Nick, are you prepared to lose a finger?
Sure. I'm gonna
Can you identify as me? They're like, Jared, you've lost a lot of weight.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you have this
look
unique
unwell.
sensuality to
You
you
look
that I.
kinda well. Yeah, you look
Are
kinda
you
well.
okay, bro?
Yeah. Here's like
I think your
7.
car's out of gas.
Here's 7 Chick-fil-A meals. You have to eat it to prove that you're Jared. Yeah, well, no, that's crazy. Yeah, man, it'll be here before you know.
No,
And
like-
that's the problem, man. It does come up fast here. I mean, it's April. I mean, you got to get all your summer
Utah-
stuff planning here.
Utah opened their stuff. I mean, it's gonna be too late by the time anybody hears
Kansas?
this, but no, not yet. That's
April? April.
Utah's open right now, and
Kansas opens April.
and Montana's open
1st-ish.
right now. Yeah,
Yeah.
Kansas will be soon.
But-
Iowa's later.
North Dakota.
North Dakota's April, I think. Yeah, man, really banking on that North Dakota. I really hope that works out.
Seems like they got the right weather. They're going to be right back where we know they're at.
We just got to draw a tag.
We've drawn, 3 years in a row?
2, 3. Did we draw 3 years in a row? Oh shoot! I was banking on it. I don't know.
3 years in a row. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have some time to figure something out if that doesn't work out. Dude, I really want to hunt muleys this year.
Did we buy our last Iowa point?
We have 4 right now.
Did we just buy that 4th?
Last year.
When do we buy our 5th?
This year.
When's that?
May, June.
Okay. So yeah, we'll be hunting Iowa 2024.
Is that right?
I think.
Will we draw?
We should draw with 5 points.
With 5 points?
Some people said you need 6 now, which is nuts, but I bet we draw with 5.
Can we put in as a group, like to make sure we?
Yes.
All right.
Because then you go by the lowest points in the group.
Oh, okay.
Which will both have 5.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, dude, so that's been shaping up. I mean, dude, it's hard. It's hard to put time and money aside to do the tags thing because, like, dude, it can take 5-6 years. I mean, imagine having the foresight. You're like, oh.
Well, as much as I love it, and we've kind of hit on it a few times, I'm fearful of where Kansas is going here quick.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily because of the tag situation as much as, people are leasing ground left and right. They're killing a lot of deer that are not what I would go to Kansas to kill. And it's forcing a lot of pressure on the public that used to not have any pressure. And it's inevitable. The hunting in Kansas is on the decline. Has been. Talk to any local. It's not nearly as good as it was 10 years ago. Just isn't.
At least public land.
I bet private too.
Yeah, certain private.
I mean, with the advent of more leasing in those areas, you're getting people from areas who aren't used to seeing 150-inch 3-year-olds, and they're killing them.
Yeah, there will always be, and maybe eventually, it does get it's threatened, but like there are for sure, a couple 1,000-acre tracts that are.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's
the
some
original owners.
There's some elite ones, but I mean, look at even some of our connections locally on the shed side.
Oh yeah,
that's the telling sign.
I see it.
Half the sheds,
and they are shed hunting primarily public land, and private lands that border public lands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? So it's the public lands that see the brunt of the decline.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's where we kind of cut our teeth in there.
Yeah.
So, I don't see, it's not that I think it's going to be dog shit, but I do see Kansas kind of on the decline, and states have gone through that cycle, and Illinois went through that cycle, the golden triangle of Illinois, and people will still say it's not that good, but, it went through a heavy hit there. I think that was more outfitting based, but I'm not positive, but I mean, it went through a time where it was producing significant giants on a consistent basis to a lot of people killing mid-40s, 3-year-old deer. But I think it's cycling itself back where
it will do that.
It's coming back. And this all goes back to the whole, thing that I think there were too many people and not enough access, and the quality of the hunt experience declined rapidly, and people were just going to stop hunting.
Mm-hmm.
That's not because hunting's going away as a way. They had a bad experience.
Yeah.
I went in the woods. I walked in 30 minutes before dark, 250 yards. Guy starts cussing up a storm saying he's going to shoot me. Who the fuck wants that experience?
Right.
That's especially as a new hunter, that's intimidating. For us, we just flick them off and walk by. We don't give a shit.
Sure. It's you don't want it no matter what. But.
Yeah, but for the new hunter, that's not a good experience. Or, I hunted a full week on this public land and all I saw was guys. I didn't see any deer.
Yeah,
that's not a good experience.
No.
People don't, and it won't last. Like you can't cut your teeth on that. And unlike I think we talked about it with Fuhrer and Johnny and maybe Rendell Eric, like the grind and the struggle in our younger days is what hooked us to where we are today. But there's a very fine line there, right? Yeah. Whereas now, I think if people had to grind and struggle like that, it won't stick.
Well, and the grind and the struggle was more with like the equipment and lack of information. And like,
that's it.
None of these like technologies
cameras
existed.
Yeah. No cameras, no social media. I read Pennsylvania Game and Fish in a magazine to see where people were killing big deer.
The challenge was just to kill the deer. Like
that. Talked at the archery shop.
That was like quite a feat, to do. Now it's like killing a deer has become very doable. Some would even say easy with the right equipment and technology and stuff. And so what you're competing with is just people, and that's not fun. Use like a fishing analogy. It's like it's fun to try to figure out like what a fish is biting on, what time of day, like how all the different things that go into catching a fish successfully. Mm-hmm. As opposed to
and it's on the fishing,
just crossing lines with like 10 other guys in your hole.
It's on the fishing side too. I mean, and I have one, but the Garmin Live Scope.
Yeah.
I mean, there are plenty of people that, that is the cell camera of fishing, right? It's there they are, they're moving, there's my bait down, they ate it, I lift it up. Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
And I make it seem easier than it actually is, although somebody will say, nope, that's pretty much, that's how it is.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it always comes back to, like I love innovation, I love technology. Where's the line? And are we there yet? And it sounds like at least at some point, maybe without enough public opinion or communication, the DNR is making that decision for us, or the Game Commission's making that decision for us and saying, yep, that's the line, and now we're going to pull it back. We're gonna ban trail cameras. Mike said it. Which not a lot of people, but we're gonna ban drones on public land. Like there is a line that's being laid pretty quickly.
They should be regulated, and I don't know how I feel about the government necessarily being the ones to do it, but
it's government land.
It's a public reason. I don't know, dude. It's a very dense conversation. Well, I was talking to somebody just the other day about the Chat GPT. Was it GPT stuff?
Yep.
And Nick, you know about all that, right?
I used it the other day.
What that is, and dude, that's I think just such a great example of a great piece of technology that simplifies a process that nobody wants to do.
Mm-hmm. But there's a chance to abuse it as well.
Well, not only that, it's like removing us from it. Like
100%.
It's like as annoying as it was to have to, copyright something, or so as real estate agents, you and I write descriptions for all the properties that we list. Hey, this property has XYZ, it's tucked into, here, has these, opportunities. With Chat GPT, doing that for you, like technology, just basically taking that over. There's some conveniences that come with it, but
we become a mindless society.
Mindless. Like, dude, the ability to write anything, or any nuance, any tangibility that existed in things that were written by human beings is gone. It's out
past the bar
exam.
Out the door.
Dude, I had a guy the other day, literally yesterday, I was at the gym, and there's kind of like a friend of a friend was like, I'm thinking about, getting back into my field, use my degree, and his degree is in English. He's an English major and I'm like, bro, have you heard of Chat GPT? And he's like, no. I was like,
you're out of
there
business.
is no writing industry.
You're out of business.
It's gone.
Yeah, and I mean, there's always a lag in the data a little bit, and there is. I wrote it, so I was playing around with it the other day. I wrote a description on a property. Really well written. I mean, scary well written based on the input data I gave it. Mm-hmm. Not my style, right? So that's where, from say a hunter or land manager, nature's beauty. Nobody gives a fuck about that.
Right.
Big bucks.
Right.
But I mean, other than that, better. When I went to grad school, my math scores were off the charts. My verbal looked like Spanish was my first language. I was just absolutely. I barely got my name right. Probably just was not my strong suit.
They should give you a point for that on the SATs.
Yeah. So for me, a Chat GPT solves a lot of issues because I'm not good at writing and verbal and things like that. But I mean, as a mindless society, the fact that I could just go plug, 500 words, copy, paste,
right,
done, out the door.
Right.
What? I mean, completely changed. At some point, customer service. Hey, how would you answer this person on ... There's the answer. Boop.
Wow.
Drop it out there.
See, that's where I'm saying, in theory, yeah. It's creating a convenience, but I mean, dude, look at, since you mentioned it, customer service. Look at customer service now.
It's trash.
They've tried to automate it, and it's worthless.
It's trash.
It's you get an instant response, but it's
nothing to do with what I want.
It's not real. It's just garbage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I still do. The majority of people who write customer service into Deer Grove get me answering. Literally, it's me answering the email.
Yeah, but I mean, to the Chat GPT thing, we're early on in this thing.
But they're cutting corners. They're gonna do it.
Right now, it's just a convenience, and nobody really cares. But within a 5-year whatever it is,
there will be no customer service.
Well, just text in general. When all text is replaced by, or in our minds potentially was written by an AI, what value does it have? None. To me, it's it's a program. It's spat out. It's not real.
But what's the purpose?
It's like bots on social media. It's like all this chatter, all this all this stuff, and it's like it's not real.
I mean, you could have Chat GPT right now write a news story, and I wouldn't know the difference between if they wrote it or a reporter wrote it.
I know. That's the scary thing.
And it's going to continue that way.
That's the scary thing.
And Chat GPT is going to output based on the data that's input, which we know is bias.
For sure. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a scary thing. Like whenever technology is automating things for you, I think with any convenience that technology offers, it also comes with some pretty significant.
You see a scary thing? Ask Chat GPT about you. Give it the details of you and your location and see what it spits out.
Have you done that?
Mm-hmm.
Can we do that? How do you is it just a website?
It's OpenAI, yeah.
Can Nick pull it up?
You have to log in, which I log in with my
Why don't you make
Gmail.
an account, Nick?
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Hoyt Archery.
Dude, where would we be without our Hoyt bows?
Probably shooting crossbows.
or a Matthews, yeah.
One and the same.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, we love being Hoyt guys because you stand out. When you're in this room full of other people that shoot these other types of bows, I feel like the Hoyt guys just stick out.
Dude, it's just a legit bow. I mean, especially that carbon riser, man. I mean, I know that they've got several other aluminum lines as well, but for me, I'm shooting that RX5 in the carbon model. They've since come out with the RX7, and I can't tell you how much I love being a Hoyt guy amongst a sea full of Matthews guys. So we're out there, I think, proving them wrong, shooting 80 pounds and killing stuff.
Hey, man, if you want to get serious, get Hoyt. Okay, Nick, we're back.
We're back.
So
Okay.
how does this work?
So ChatGPT, go down in the box here.
Okay.
Okay, do this one. Say, tell me how to plant switchgrass in Ohio.
Tell me about crossbows in Pennsylvania.
Oh, that'd be good. Yeah. Yes.
Crossbow hunting.
If you're listening to this, we are asking ChatGPT right now to tell us about crossbow hunting in Pennsylvania.
Let's
No,
see.
just
Computing.
Here we go. Crossbow hunting in Pennsylvania is legal for all hunters during certain parts of the year. In 2021, the Pennsylvania Game Commission, PGC, approved the use of crossbows for all hunters during the statewide archery deer season, which typically runs from late September to mid-November. In addition, crossbows are allowed during the late archery deer season, which runs from mid-November to late December, and during the bear season. However, there are some restrictions on crossbow use in Pennsylvania. For example, hunters are required to obtain a special permit to use a crossbow. Well, this is inaccurate. During the regular archery season, if they are not certified. Nope. See, that's old data.
Interesting.
Wrong, ChatGPT. You're wrong.
That's old info.
Additionally, crossbows have a minimum draw weight. Yeah, that's right. So it is trying to say that you need a permit saying that you're disabled. In this case, I would agree with ChatGPT.
It's important to note that hunting regulations can change from year to year, so it's always a good idea to check Pennsylvania Game Commission's website for the most up-to-date information before heading out on a hunt.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Wow.
That's pretty wild.
That's nuts.
Ask it to, you could ask it to
write a love letter to your girlfriend or something. It'll do it.
Yeah. Do something random. Say ask
Do something
it,
crazy.
Say write a 500-word essay on the Civil War. The data limitation is, again, anything newer than September 2021. It does have it in the system. They're just not making it public.
I wonder if it will understand, like, write a totally unique something.
100%.
Because it's like, in this case, teachers are going to look for plagiarism. There's online tools to do that. Yeah, there it is.
High school would have been so much easier, bro.
Yeah.
I could have used this for my senior paper.
Isn't that crazy?
Instead of paying somebody to do it, I could have done it on GPT for free.
Well, I shouldn't say it. My mom did write some of mine.
Dude, I wonder, can it code? Can you say code me a program?
In fact, I had a client the other day. We were trying to figure something out, and they said, "Hey, I asked ChatGPT about what would be this code shortcut, and it produced it."
Wow.
Yeah, and it gave you the string of code that you would need for it.
Well, but that's kind of what I'm saying is like, it's as cool as that is. And like, it's amazing that it can pull all that information. Like it's, in my mind, it's really devaluing like the written word, you know, because like it was rooted from humans. Humans had to write the stuff, you know, and now it's just like it's generating from data points and input points, and it's just kind of like a soup of it's like a data soup, you know, with no real human element to it. I'm sure it's correct,
Right.
you know, but I don't know.
I
Doesn't feel right.
am more against AI than for it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's crazy stuff. Again, well, it's now published. So here, do this, Nick. I know we're kind of batting around here, but say, write a real estate description for an office building for sale that generates $10,000 a month in rent. So this is what real estate agents are doing right now. So that kind of describes my building that I'm trying to sell right now. If anybody wants to buy it.
Introducing an impressive, wow, look how fast it's going. An impressive commercial property for sale, presenting a prime opportunity for investors seeking a highly profitable asset. This stunning office building is located in a highly desirable area, offering easy access to major highways and public transportation, and is surrounded by a bustling business district. This immaculately maintained building boasts a spacious interior of over 10,000 square feet of versatile office space. The property is fully leased, generating a steady monthly income of $10,000 in rent. With long-term tenants in place, the property provides a secure and reliable investment opportunity for discerning investors. The office space is bright and airy with provide ample natural light and breath. There are no actually windows in this building here, but the building is equipped in blah, 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 blah. Dude, it's writing it faster than I can read it.
Wow.
But there you go. I mean, that is a hell of a lot better than the description I wrote for it.
It's making crap up. I mean, like,
oh yeah,
you know, we only gave it so much information, so it needs to be combed.
We
and
call
refined,
that fluff.
Yes, fluff, right? You know what a fluffer is, Nick?
I sure do.
We call that fluff.
Crazy, isn't it?
So when are they releasing a 2.0?
I don't know. I think it's this upgrade to Plus, Nick. Go down here.
Oh, it's there. You just got to pay for it.
Yeah, I think so. There you go.
$20 a month.
So available when high demand, fast response, priority to new features.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's $20 a month. But I mean, dude, that's nothing.
Yeah.
Pretty wild, and we will know if you're using these for YouTube descriptions, Nick.
I might encourage you to use them for YouTube descriptions.
It might get a little bit better, honestly.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, it's as we talk. So again, that's real time society of how far is too far in technology. In my opinion, Chat GPT is too far because it's going to make our society even more mindless than it is now. And Google, unfortunately, maybe they'll bump us up on YouTube listening to this, is our only hope to suffocate this son of a bitch. Put a pillow over his face.
Well, dude, what's that technology called with it's like the face over where it's like it's like indiscernible. You're like, oh yeah, Joe Biden said that.
Oh yeah. The like AI on the face with the voice and stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, dude, any of those things that are like replacing human activity or whatever is like it's maybe unintentionally like removing our trust in those things.
Absolutely.
You're like, did somebody really write this? Is that guy really saying this? It's
well, I mean,
like,
if you read that description about my building as a potential investor, you would pick up the phone and called me.
Yeah.
You're like, this sounds great. You know, and if the pictures jive with what it's saying, it sounds great. You know, and obviously there's a lot of fluff. We didn't give it any of the details of where it's located and all that. It just pulls that shit out and writes. So that's where I get the argument, although I'm still for them. I get the argument when people say, well, cell cameras have taken it too far because it is that real-time data.
I get it.
On that side. And obviously, like if I'm sitting in my house, my food plot's there, that buck's out there. If I jump in the woods, he's close. He's nearby. You know?
I get it. I get it. My ears are open to that argument.
You know, and I love cell cameras, especially on the absentee properties. I mean, it's an invaluable tool, not just for deer, but for monitoring trespassing and everything else, which I'm sure if cell cameras got banned, you could put security cameras out and figure out how to monitor it. But I get I do miss some of the allure of the unknown, right? When you sat in a tree stand in a pinch point and you're like, what the fuck, dude, a 200 incher could come by. I don't know. Like, we have no idea what could come by, to now, we know a lot of the deer that are coming through.
Well, and the sad thing is, like, you just almost can't. Like, guys will say you can, like, well, yeah, you definitely can hunt without corn. You can hunt without, all these things that other people are doing. But, like, the reality is, like, dude, you got no chance. You're at an extreme disadvantage. If everybody in an area can use cell cameras and you just you are choosing not to, I don't see anybody making that decision.
And in the hard part, and we have this struggle, the hard part for us is like the baiting discussion, because, we've openly talked about in Ohio or Kentucky or Kansas putting out bait, right?
Yeah.
Yet in the same breath,
we don't want to.
We'd rather not.
Yeah, we'd rather not.
And so somebody easily, and I get the criticism, so, well, what do you mean? Like, don't do it then. Well, yeah, but the neighbor is, and I'm screwed if I don't. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not even on the same playing field. I could have the best food plots, and, they'll say, well, the big bucks won't eat. A deer's still going to the corn.
Not to keep going back to, like, the fishing analogies, but, like, dude, it's literally like, there's 10 guys fishing a fishing hole, and all of them have bait on their hooks, and then you decide to just throw a hook in.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what it is.
And you're like, I
might catch one.
Snag one.
Yeah, I might snag one. That's exactly what it is. Or
I guess maybe it's a bad analogy because everybody...
No. You're right. Like, or go to a fly fishing only zone, and you have waxworms and minnows.
Those waxworms will get it done.
You crush them.
Yeah.
Not saying I haven't done that sometime in a previous life, Nick. Yeah. Not saying that I did do it in a previous life.
Dude, listen, one time I was fishing, I was crushing this spot. I was just out of high school. I was like, man, I'm killing it in here. I was like, I was grub delight, just throwing straight grubs. I found out later it was like a special needs fishing area. You had to be like,
I am ripping lips like crazy, man.
I was like, dude, I'm just crushing. I mean, I'm the best fisherman of all time. Yeah. But it's like this area is for like disabled fishermen only. There was never anybody there.
That's so funny. Well, they used to do it. You remember, what's the elementary school that they used to stock over by you in Apollo?
Oh, I can see it. It's right across from the library.
Begins with an S.
Does it?
Yeah. It's not Slade.
It's a Murray.
Sloan Elementary School.
Yeah.
It's Sloan Elementary School.
Yeah.
They stock
little stream.
Yeah, they would stock that for a kids derby and stuff. And like, I used to take like my cousin's stuff there, and like, then everybody would leave, and it's like, yeah. And I mean, but that's how that stuff was, In fact, we did. Oh, dude, it's probably 3 or 4 years ago now. It was not long after we moved back here. The DCNR did a fishing derby not too far from here, and it was an old swimming pool that was part of an old like camp, but it had a natural spring in it, so it was natural spring water, but it was in a swimming pool, and it it's a mile back in off of this parking area, right? Well, the day that the derby was supposed to happen, it was like a monsoon, thunder, lightning, whatever, and like they canceled the derby. So I remember like looking at the map, I'm like, where the hell is this thing? And I take Harlan and Carter, we walk up, and I'm talking 500 trout like just in this pool, and I was like, have at it, boys. They caught like 50 trout each.
Wow.
That's awesome.
But it was literally, we were fishing in a swimming pool, in the middle of the woods. It was just buried back there. And it was a blast. Like,
what happened? All those fish would have died eventually? Like,
I guess so. It was in a swimming pool.
The fish commission just left them there?
DCNR just stocked them in it. Yeah.
And it was a holding tank. They were just using it to hold them until they moved into the stream.
No. That was where the derby was. It was in that pool.
It was supposed to be, like I said.
And it was a natural spring, like I said. And I mean, but there's nowhere they're not going anywhere. Yeah. And I mean, literally, I could see bottom. It's a 7-foot swimming pool or whatever.
Yeah. You didn't jump in?
It's really weird. No, I thought about it. There was a couple giant like rainbows in there.
Caught this one with my bare hands.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's, again, from a technology side, like, I don't know where the line is. It does seem, per these last recent conversations in some of these weeks, and I mean, the DCNRs and DNRs and Game Commission are drawing the line for us, whether we have input or not. I mean, they say we do, but they're banning trail cameras, or they're banning drones, or they're, banning cameras on certain parts of land, or they're banning shed hunting, or like they're drawing the line of what they believe is legal and not. That's an interesting spot to be in here. Because what if tomorrow we wake up and all of a sudden there's this 20 state pack that we didn't know about that all said, yep, trail cameras are banned in the eastern U.S.
Yeah.
private and public,
Well,
like they did in the West.
you know, I'm not like inherently against the, you know, the trail cam thing. Like I can see a lot of benefit to removing trail cameras, especially cell cameras. But I hate the fact that like the government is the one who's
telling us to do it.
Like I would way rather, you know, if we as hunters or as, you know, sportsmen, outdoorsmen could get together and say, listen, this is getting a little out of hand. Like,
here's the line.
Let's agree to do this or that. And I mean, just, you know, obviously we can't all agree.
No, and we'll never. It's same with the baiting. Like, you know, unless the government tells you can't bait, no hunting groups are going to get together enough.
Yeah, because it's competition. Everybody wants a leg up. Everyone wants to kill the biggest buck.
Well, I mean, people were talking about it the other day in Missouri. They're like, yeah, I see corn feeders all over the place. But you can't bait in Missouri. They don't care.
Yeah.
People don't care. They just do it anyway. Same with Pennsylvania. Like half the deer
you go to the World King and they're selling by a pallet.
Yeah. It's illegal. Can't do it. And yet, like, I'll shoot a deer on the mountain and it's got a belly full of corn.
Yeah.
So it you know, people do to that point that we talked about with Mike Yoder last week. People do whatever they want. You could tell them it's illegal, they'll fly the drone over it. You could tell them not to use a cell camera, they're going to use a cell camera. Like unless you can enforce it, which you can't, they'll do whatever you want. So the law is almost worthless.
You'd have to nib it at the butt. I mean, I'm not telling anybody how to do it, but like you'd have to go after trail cam manufacturers and say, hey,
you'd have to stop them.
You've stopped this. You know, you have to go to. I don't know how you do it. You'd have to go to like independent. You couldn't go to the farmer level, but you'd have to find some way to like stop the distribution of like 50-pound bags of corn.
And I mean, people will tell you, especially in Ohio and Kansas and Kentucky, that's a significant revenue stream for the local farmers.
Yeah, it's huge.
You'd be pulling out a ton of money out of those farmers' pockets, whether you like baiting or not. It would be a giant impact on the economy in those farm areas.
No doubt.
Which sucks. And so, yeah, I mean, it's the turmoil. At some point, what I don't want to do, and I think Ryan Fuhrer was the one who said it the other day, is what I don't want to do is get to the point where, you know, let's say we lose hunters and we go down this road. And I think Ryan's point was they just say, hey, season opens October 1st, ends on the 31st. Here's the number of tags you have. Use whatever you want. Kill them however you want. We don't give a shit. Like that would be a natural disaster to our resource and our hunting lifestyle as we know it. People will say it's gone too far already, and maybe that's where you're trying to avoid. But like that is the and there's several states that have that. South Carolina, I think for one, starts in August. Here's your tags. Season opens here, closes there. You can use whatever you want the whole season. Won't give a shit. So, I mean, it's not out of the reality that it could happen at some point. Probably not in any of our lifetimes, but it's there.
Who knows, man?
Yeah, you just don't know with the control aspect of things. But, yeah, I mean, it's the cool thing for us in the off season is we love to get out there and do hands-on activities and really know that we're making a difference on food plots and timber and whatever. I don't think the problem is there. It's the season's here. It's open. How are you going to hunt? What tools are you going to use to hunt? Where's the line that you're willing to cross and not cross? You know, and to the point of baiting, like, yeah, I'd rather not. I do it. I'm a hypocrite in that sense. It's yes, I don't like baiting, but I do it.
But I don't think you are.
Well, I think I am. I mean, that's the easiest definition of it is I don't want it, I don't like it, I don't support it, but I do it. You know?
Yes, but there are, significant consequences potentially if you don't. And so you're kind of being like your arm is
not that I won't have any deer, but the neighbors will ultimately draw more of the deer that I'm trying to work to protect or harvest myself to their properties.
Yeah, I don't know. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's like a cut and dry hypocrisy because it's like, you know, you and I think are both on the same page. We would say, I would prefer not to bait at all or kill a deer over bait, you know, but we both believe there are some pretty significant consequences. The main one being
I've seen it firsthand.
Everybody around us is baiting and will draw those deer away, and so our success will be affected.
I've seen it firsthand in places on my properties because I don't get there. Like I'm not there every week putting bait out. I just can't. Yeah. Like most of the places I'm there once every 3-4 weeks. When if my feeder runs out, the number of deer that I see on my property cuts down to about 20%.
Yeah.
Especially when there's no acorns or the food plots are hammered or whatever else.
And because they moved over to the next feeder.
Moved right over to the next feeder to the neighbor.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so that's why I don't think it's like cut and dry hypocrisy. Like it's you kind of doing it. You're being forced to do it. You know, not literally, but like the alternative is like you don't have nearly as much success.
Well, and in the weird case is like most of the places where my feeders are is not where my stands are for hunting. Like I have feeders filled to keep deer around my property, but I'm usually hunting them on a different, like getting in between bed and food or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not saying that I haven't hunted over bait because I absolutely have, but it's a weird situation versus, to your point, a lot of times the corn pile on 2 acres and I'm sitting here with a straight wall cartridge rifle and I have 2 acres. I'm just waiting to pull that deer in from somewhere else and shoot him on this 2 acres. And it happens a lot, you know,
ton.
And what would that look like if that was not able to happen? That 2 acres doesn't mean you couldn't kill a deer, but you're surely not nearly in the opportunity to kill them like you would with a corn pile.
Mm-hmm.
Greatly diminished,
mm-hmm.
you know? Whereas if I have a well-managed property of 50 acres next to you, I'm way more likely to have deer and better deer using my property.
Well, and arguably, I think it should be that way. You know what I mean? If you have more land and, you know, if you put
Mm-hmm.
more effort into managing it, you should have more of an opportunity to kill a bigger buck.
And let me challenge you on this too. Not challenge you, but I'll explain it. I believe that all of the people listening to this that are on public land, you guys would have 100% better opportunity at killing bucks if it was banned on private land.
100%.
Your public land is suffering greatly because they're being siphoned off to the private lands, not because of food plots necessarily. If a deer comes and eats a food plot, he can go bet on that ridge. But when he's got corn piles there all the time or feeders all the time, he's not coming back on your public land. He's going to stay off of it.
100%. Well, did we even see it on private land? Like, you know, if we have private land that we don't bait on because we don't get there,
They're gone.
You know, that's in Ohio, right? Where you've got an outfitter nearby with tons of giants.
And what do we say? 30 tons of corn?
Yeah.
30 tons of corn that they're putting out, and I might put out 1,000 pounds a year.
Yeah. And I see the same thing. Like, you know, at our farm in Ohio, I know a guy that's putting out 20, 30 tons in one spot in one season. And those deer don't leave. I mean, they
don't need to.
They don't need to.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you know, it is an unnatural effect of pulling deer in. And people can say, well, food plots are the same way. No, it's not.
It's not.
Not the same. I can go and put that corn pile anywhere, anytime, any day, and it'll be there. I can go and plant seed somewhere, and there's not a chance in hell that is going to grow in this situation or during this day or be there for me next week.
Mm-hmm.
But that corn pile will. And that's the challenge, right? It's the big thing across the board. And again, I don't know if you can ever enforce it in the places that it is openly legal.
Yeah, it's tough.
I think you'd have a hell of a time pulling it. To Ben Rising's quote, fly over the state of Ohio in January and it's glowing yellow piles.
He's not kidding, dude. Like that's the reality. Yeah, they're everywhere.
It would change hunting. I think that if you want to enhance the ability to hook hunters and not lose them over poor experiences, removing bait statewide would absolutely enhance their experiences on public land.
Yeah,
Just would.
I'm trying to like solve the economic issue with banning baiting.
The farmer thing I don't like. I don't like that it would take a hit to farmers who, you know, because of the way society has gone, that has now become a major revenue source for them. So no, I don't want that to go away at all.
No.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know how that fixes it, you know? Because, I mean, it would be a substantial economic impact.
Yeah, you would almost need like somehow for, you know, whether it's the state or another industry to like have that same utility. To offset it, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if you could. Because I don't know what that number is. I bet it's a lot. I might just think how much money we spent.
What if we taxed crossbow sales like 40%? And use that money to buy back all the corn.
I mean, I wouldn't,
and then dump it into the Chesapeake Bay.
I wouldn't be opposed to to greater taxes on other things to offset. And then people are, we're already taxed too much. Yeah, I get it. But like there's taxes that are just bullshit because I'm paying for the person who's on welfare versus the taxes that I'm paying that go to something good. So like the state of Missouri on your sales tax has a portion of that goes back to conservation. Great. You can bitch about taxes. That's a great tax. That is absolutely making that department thrive, and that entire state has a massive amount of money for that. On the other hand, there's a bunch of bullshit taxes that go to places that we'll never see, probably into politicians' pockets and whatever else. So what if there was a small amount of sales tax on, I don't know, perishable groceries that was for farmers, like a farmer fund? I don't know. Like, what are you going to pay? A quarter more on a $10 order or $15 order? But that goes into a fund. Again, the problem is the masses don't care about it because they're like, well, we don't give a shit that the hunters are baiting, or we don't even know that what the hell is baiting. Like, why are they getting corn and putting it out?
Sure.
So, I mean, you're just always going to have that. The problem is farming has evolved to where for a lot of farmers, that is a major source of income.
Yeah. Yeah, undeniable.
And so, especially the small private ones. I mean, you've got cornfields and you start selling $6 bags of corn out the back of your barn. I mean, it'll be gone in these bait states.
It still really can't be that much though. I mean, how many?
I don't know.
Because even your 30 tons, like we did the math on it, it wasn't
That's
that much
60,000
money.
pounds. Yeah, 60,000 pounds divided by, 50-pound bags?
So 60,000 pounds divided by 50
Mhm.
is 1,200.
Times
Bags times
$7.
$7 a bag is $8,400.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that's not really that much money for, I wonder how many acres of field it would take to pull off 60,000 pounds of corn.
I don't know. That goes to bushels, and I don't know how many pounds are in a bushel. My brain doesn't farmer function.
How many pounds of shelled
Why don't you
corn?
ask ChatGPT?
How many pounds of shelled corn are in a bushel?
I didn't really mean you have to ask ChatGPT, but they would know.
Okay, an 8-inch, 56 pounds is what it says. An 8-inch ear of corn contains about half pound equivalent of shelled corn. Therefore, 112 8-inch ears would be equal to 1 bushel, 56 pounds. 8-inch ear comes. So how do I translate that, Jeremy, to
What you got?
1 bushel? Oh, it's 56 pounds of shelled corn. How many bushels can you get per acre?
I mean, that some of those places are producing like 200 bushels per acre, like in the like peak ground.
So let's call it 150.
Yeah.
So 150 times 56 was times 56.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting 8,400 pounds per acre.
So it's an acre of corn, basically. 8,400.
8,400 pounds per acre.
So you must need 6 acres to fulfill 7 acres to fulfill that 60,000 pounds.
Yeah. And so, like, let's say in Ohio, average farmer's probably farming 600 to 800 acres. Right?
Yep.
Let's call it 700.
Yep.
That's 5,880,000 pounds of shelled corn.
Mm-hmm.
So divided by 50 is 117,000 bags they can dish out.
Times 7. That's $1 million.
Why would I times by 7? Oh, times $7.
Mm-hmm.
Times $7 is $823,000.
It's a lot of money. For
Yeah,
a
and I
farmer.
mean, you got to factor in profit margins, probably fairly low on that.
Sure.
They're probably making $250,000 on that, and that's a big farm. 700 acres of farm. That's significant. Most small time farmers are farming probably way less than
Way
that.
less than that. So they're making
200 acres,
$100,000, maybe 75,000.
Yeah,
it's a lot. And I mean, it's a big. And again, they're selling to other places, grain mills, whatever, ethanol plants. I don't know.
Yeah, well, and those are the things you got to stack it up against. It's like, are they withhold? Like, do they have
so.
leftover? Is there?
I would assume they're not withholding. I would assume that hunters getting shelled corn is the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah,
would be my guess.
Yeah, I would think so too.
So, well, Nick, we've educated you on ChatGPT today and solved some of the world's problems.
Yeah. I mean, the technology thing is like, it's ever evolving. I do feel, I mean, the trail camera thing especially, dude, like it was a lot of fun, like, because it's new technology. It's just like we talked about with Mike last week. It's like you have all this, the underworld of deer that we never saw before. It's like all this information, and it can be.
I love the observational side of it, or that deer's here and he's here and he's here all in one night, and it's like, damn, that deer is moving.
Yeah, and it's awesome. But just with that, it comes with opportunities for people to abuse it. And when it's a public resource, people will. They absolutely will.
There's plenty of people, I'm sure, that are like honed in on their cameras, making a move as soon as they see the deer wherever they need to see it at, and going and killing that deer within a reasonable time.
Sure. Well, and dude, we've done it. We've tried, hunting deer over corn pile with a camera. Yep. Like, we've done it.
Yep.
Not successfully a lot, but it can be done. I don't know, man. It's all you can do, I think, is try to make as many opportunities for yourself in terms of like access different places to go and stuff, and just what you want at the end of the day is to be able to hunt the way that you want to hunt, and that is affected, by other people, neighboring landowners or hunters using technology, using bait piles, but you should just try to do it the way that you want to do it, and when that pans out, when you're successful doing that, I think that's
yeah. And I mean, it's where I respect some of the. Frankly, I still respect the state of Pennsylvania for doing it like they do. It's hard to kill mature deer in this state, and it's hard to kill a buck period in the state in a lot of cases because not everything it's not very fertile ground. There's some obviously towards the central part of the state, Lancaster and stuff like that there is, but where we're at, we're mountain ground. Or rocky rolling hills. Like, it's not great ground around here. I think it's not just hunting pressure either. I think it's just people. Yep. Too many people. Too many people. Yep.
For the deer, like the average tract of land is way too small.
It's under 40 acres probably from a big tract standpoint.
Way under. Just development, hunting pressure, human pressure in general, highways, cars.
A lot of things
just
working
tough.
against
them.
Deer,
they just die. It's tough for them to put age on, but they do in certain areas.
But I mean, could you imagine a state like this opening up baiting? Be a mass slaughter.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to consider what that would look like.
I would feel like it would be a mass slaughter.
Yeah, it could only hurt the age class.
Which is not good to begin with.
Right. Yeah, because in Ohio, instead of like every 40-acre tract having a corn pile on it, which is already
like every 5-acre tract.
Every 5-acre tract has a corn pile on it, and nothing's slipping through at that point.
No, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds are all dead.
Yeah.
It would be tough. And I don't think it'll ever come to that, obviously, but
opportunity, baby.
Well, yeah. It'd be interesting to see how some of these other, because it's coming. I mean, if you all want to, take anything for facts out of the last few weeks, is these states oftentimes don't care what the hell you think, and they're going to make the decision anyways, and that's that. So you may say, well, they'll never ban baiting in Ohio. I wouldn't hold my breath on that one. Wouldn't hold my breath.
You think that they might?
Mm-hmm. And I bet it's not that far off.
Yeah, I mean,
if they can, how they enforce it and what change, I don't know.
Well,
law-abiding people like us, like if somebody said, "Hey, you can't bait tomorrow," it's a law. Obviously, we're not going to bait.
I do think, I think a lot of people would follow that rule. I bet you. I bet you north of 70% of people would abide by it.
It'd be the pieces of shit that don't.
Sure.
But that's not just in hunting. In life, they're a piece of shit.
Sure. Well, and at least at that point, I mean, because deer can only range so far. I mean, if you reduce the amount of people that are baiting now by 70%, you're going to have deer that aren't baited, aren't going to baiting piles.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it would be a big change. But the people who say, well, I don't give a shit, I'll drive drunk, or the people who say, well, they took my license, I'll still drive. Those are the pieces of shit that'll still do whatever they want to do.
Sure.
And whether there's a law or not, they'll just do it anyways.
Sure. Give law enforcement something to do.
Just wipe them off the face of the earth one by one. That's the way I'd look
at
it.
But you don't know about killing them. But
well, I didn't say kill them. I just said
wipe them off the face of the earth.
I mean,
I was gonna say arrest them, but
I mean, shoot them up to the moon or something. I don't know.
Title of this podcast: Will banning baiting lead to the purge?
The purge.
That's funny, man.
Wouldn't be a bad idea some days, Nick. Not a bad idea some days.
All right. Well,
that's it.
Cool. Yeah, that's good. That's a good one for today. Real quick, maybe like we've been talking on this I bought a farm thing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we'll just lay that out for. We're going to continue it. I think we're gonna change approach just a little bit.
Yeah, we're just gonna pivot it. I mean, it's still gonna be all relevant to you're looking for land, you want to buy land, you want to sell land, whatever.
Yep. And I think although we didn't really take an approach to begin with on the thing, like moving forward, now that Jeremy and I have like a position, like more of a leg to stand on as far as our experience with real estate, our exposure with people, real estate agents, people, frankly, people operating in the real estate space. And I don't just mean agents or brokers. It also means, lenders, land managers, across the board. There's a lot of different aspects that go into the real estate industry, and I think that our interest in that is from the perspective of agents here in southwestern Pennsylvania and also hunters, in several of these states in the Northeast and into the Midwest. So I think we're going to broaden our horizon a little bit, and our hope, I think, would be to bring in some top agents who are dealing in our space kind of across the country and in states nearby, as well as I mentioned, lenders, land managers, so on and so forth.
We're just going to kind of give you a peek up the skirt of the behind the scenes, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, dude, the HUNTR Podcast is our frank conversations, essentially behind the scenes of like the hunting industry, and we tie in some state ODNR regulation stuff with that, and it just really is what Jeremy and I are passionate about. And we kind of spare that podcast from the in-depth real estate conversations that Jeremy and I are having, like on a day-to-day basis, and that's what a large portion of our lives and our businesses are tied up into, and so I think it's time for people to hear some of those conversations as well. So.
Well, and I think that there's a lot of let's just say interpretation of what the public is seeing. Whether it's, oh my God, these real estate agents are driving up price or this and that and da 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 da. And a lot of it is, a lot of it's true. I mean, but
100%
in a way that most of the pricing that's happening in those situations is being done by people who don't understand the value of the land.
Yeah.
It's not people like Jared or myself who are land experts. In fact, we lose a bunch of listings simply because we'll tell the people what it'll sell for, and somebody else will tell them what they want to hear.
Yeah. Well, dude, our biggest enemy in real estate, in being successful agents at working with people to buy and sell land, is other agents that don't know what they're doing.
That's it.
It's as simple as that. And frankly, the brokerages that they're working for don't either. Here in southwestern PA,
it's a specific niche. It's just like if you put us in a housing plan to sell a bunch of housing plans, like that's not our skill.
Right.
We're not as familiar with that as we are with land and rural homes and farms and timber and whatever else.
Yeah.
But where it comes to a head is we will list a property, they'll list a property, they'll list for way more than us. Maybe it doesn't sell there, but it still sells higher or close to where we sell at. And like, that's where the comps start to get thrown around and prices start to increase, and or property sits on the market, or a piece of property that you really want sits on the market and you'll never be able to afford it because somebody who's uneducated is listing it for double the price.
So, sorry if anybody glazed over there. Kind of a off the beaten path as far as like the conversations that we have on, or it's just it's tailored towards the real estate experience that Jeremy and I have in the space that we're operating in. So we're gonna just continue pioneering down that path with the I Bought a Farm podcast, and so if you enjoyed the ones so far, they will be in the same vein of that, but I think with maybe a bit more of our in depth on the real estate side.
I think anybody that's looking to buy will appreciate kind of the thought processes behind that to get to where it's going. So, you're not as surprised as you might be now when you see what a price land might be or why it's priced that way. Or
there's a lot more questions than answers from a lot of people across the industry. It's not just people looking to buy or sell. It's also the people working in this space. They don't necessarily understand, like, oh, why did so-and-so list this for that amount? Oh, why is the mortgage rate this or that?
You got me.
And I think that Jeremy and I definitely don't have all of the answers, but we have encountered a lot of those scenarios, and through Whitetail Properties have a lot of those answers at our disposal. And so as we're working through those, I think the hope is to bring those conversations to you guys so that you can ingest them.
That would be the best way to look at it. Okay, that's all for this week, and we'll see you all next week.
Later.
Take me